Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about decision making. This is such an important topic because when we're managing projects, there are going to be a lot of decisions that need to be made, some more difficult than others, and we need to make sure that it's really clear who is driving the decisions, who's making the decisions, who's providing input to the decisions, who's implementing it. There's a lot of different moving pieces. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about decision-making roles so that you could use this as a framework and you can ask yourself, who are the stakeholders? Who needs to be assigned these different roles? Second of all, we are going to talk about how you can track your project decisions. If you recall, I have a different video. The other video is focused on the RAID log, sometimes called the IRAD log, where it has different tabs. And today we're going to focus on just the decision-making one. We want to make sure that you're really clear on what you should be using that template for. And then I'll give you a couple of tips about if you want to do this in Smartsheet, how can you go about building it out in Smartsheet? First of all, let's tackle the decision-making roles. I know that this is a big area where it can be confusing when people are trying to really understand the who's doing what. So getting straight on it right away is a great approach. The first decision-making role. This is going to be the person that is making the recommendation. I also say this is the person that is driving the decision. A lot of times, this is the project manager. Maybe they are presenting different options to the project sponsor or different key stakeholders to actually make the decision, but they are the ones that are really determining the approach and making recommendations on how they think the decision maker should move forward. So this really includes gathering all of the pertinent data, saying this is what we recommend as our first option. Maybe we have a backup option, maybe even a third option that we want to present, but really walking through the pros and the cons of each one. So recommend, this is that person really driving the decision forward. The second role, input. Now, people that are providing input to the decision, this would be during that data gathering phase. So we want to make sure that the people that need to be consulted on the decision are involved, especially when there's subject matter expertise that is required. Some examples of some rules that may be providing input: human resources, legal, regulatory, and then depending on what your project is focused on, there's probably going to be some subject matter experts in different areas. So making sure you're coordinating with the people that need to provide input and receiving that in a timely manner. The third one, who's deciding? There may be a person that's driving the decision or providing that recommended status. Maybe they're also the decision maker. So it's not impossible to have the person driving the decision. They're gathering input, talking to those that are going to give their recommendations on next steps. Maybe they're also the decision maker. That's not always the case. So again, maybe I'm the project manager working to gather the input, but I'm also going to be the decision maker. Not impossible. However, I could be the project manager gathering the information and again, presenting to a sponsor or a group of key stakeholders, maybe a board of directors. So could be the same, could be different. This is the individual or group of people that are saying, yes, move forward in that direction, act on it, and they're authorized to do so. Last but not least, don't forget this role, the implementation role. Implementation is critical. I really like to think of that decision point as being the beginning of the work for actually implementing it. there's almost always action items or things that need to follow after a decision is made, making sure that it's really clear, I like to say crystal clear, on who's going to be driving those actions forward, who is doing what and by when. So really ensuring that it's prompt and effective in regards to implementing the decision. Communication. Maybe it really is just communicating out information after the decision is made. That's possible as well. So these are decision-making roles. Recommend driving that decision forward, gathering the important information, input, oftentimes subject matter experts that are letting you know their recommendations on options. Decide, these are your decision makers or a decision maker. They're authorized to make the decision. And then the implementation role, the individual or individuals that are going to make sure that that decision is put into motion. I think that these are extremely helpful when we're talking about who is doing what. Up next, we are going to take a look at the decision-making tab in our RAID or IRAD log. Again, you can build this out in Smartsheet and have it handy so that you are putting everything into a shared database. And I think that that can be really helpful. For the sake of today, I'm going to share just an Excel spreadsheet because the point is you don't have to have fancy technology or tools or software to really ensure that you're tracking your decisions thoroughly. You'll see here on the screen now, this is a decision log. And when we think about when decisions are made, oftentimes they're made during a meeting, maybe even just a recurring weekly meeting where your project team is getting together. And they usually end up in the minutes, the meeting minutes or the meeting notes. What this does, having a decision log, consolidates all of your decisions that are made regarding the project in one location. That way, if someone asks you somewhere down the road, when was that decision made? Who was part of that decision? You're not digging back through meeting minutes and trying to figure out when it actually happened. So your decision log, pretty simple. We'll walk through it. So what project is this associated with? Who's the project manager? Who's the project sponsor? I like to number the decisions. So here on the far left-hand side, I just start at 1 and track them down from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, as many as you make over the actual life cycle of that project. When was this entered into the log? So date of entry. And what is the decision? Some examples of decisions that I've seen made. So core team meetings. Maybe you've got your core project team and you're meeting every other week and you're getting closer to a major milestone and a decision is made. We're going to increase the frequency of the meetings. We're going to start meeting on a weekly basis, and we're going to increase the meetings from 1 hour to 2 hours. Let's log that. If we have a team member that is out of the office and misses that meeting, we want to give them a really quick and easy place to go back and refer to. So they can check this decision log and make sure that they're aware, hey, starting next week, 2-hour meetings, and it's going to be every single week. So that would be an example of one. I've also seen where go live dates get delayed. So we're getting really close to a go live date. Maybe we're going to deploy something system-wide. And we start to realize things aren't going very smoothly, that we need more time. Another decision could be, we're going to delay the go live date by 4 weeks. That's a really important decision, and it's going to impact, of course, your project schedule, your project resources, probably your project budget, the scope of work. So let's make sure that we get that logged here. So those are a couple of examples of decisions that you may want to log. Date of decision. We want to get these logged as soon as possible. Sometimes it doesn't always happen on the same date that the decision was made. So date of decision, it may be different than the date of entry into the log. That's just helpful to know in case I'm a team member, I go and check the log today, and there's not any decision relating those team meetings. and it gets entered tomorrow morning, I know, okay, well, that's the date that it was made. This is the date that it hit the log. Again, try to be as timely as possible, getting all decisions entered into the decision log. Sometimes in meetings, I actually log them right there, or whoever is taking the notes, I ask them to log them right then and there so that it's updated as soon as possible. So, date of the decision, agreed by. Who was in the room? Who was part of this? Who agreed to this decision? Maybe it's just going to be one decision maker, and we could just say our project sponsor made this decision. Maybe it's a team discussion and we wanted consensus. We want to list all of the people that were part of that conversation. That can be really helpful. Action required. This column F, almost always going to say yes, because someone is going to need to communicate that decision out, look at ways to implement the decision. If, for example, you just delayed the go live date, there's going to be a lot of communications about that. Someone's probably going to need to rework the project schedule. So you'll see how it sets off a chain of events. So action required, almost always going to be yes. And you could put a lot of those details in the results or comments. I'm a big advocate for tailoring templates such as this to your needs. Maybe you want some more columns in there. Maybe you want to tweak a few things on here. Make the log your own. Just a couple of recommendations. Again, make sure that the decision log is accessible by all project team members. That's really helpful. And two, make sure that they're being logged in a timely manner. Having clear action items, having a clear implementation plan, it's going to set your project up for success. To give you a little tip on how you can import the RAID log template into Smartsheet, I'm just going to walk you through it because you may want to modify the template just a few simple ways. So if you have a workspace where all of your project documents are stored, that's where I recommend you upload the RAID log to. You're going to see that I go out to Smartsheet. I'm going to go to the YouTube projects, and I've got a folder named RAID log just to walk you through this. But it's pretty simple. I'm going to go to Create. I'm going to import Microsoft Excel, and I'm going to select the file that I want to import. Now, I have this saved on my desktop, and there's a little trick. When you import to a Smartsheet document, you're going to want to ensure that your Excel spreadsheet only has one tab. So the RAID log template that I have previously shared, it's got several different tabs. It stands for risk, actions, issues, and decisions. I would save each of those as a separate file for importing into Smartsheet. So I'm going to select one that I saved with only the decision tab on it, selecting it now, continuing. What it's going to do next, it is going to look at the top row of that Excel spreadsheet, and that is what it's going to automatically name your columns after. So you want to make sure that you don't have any title headings or anything on that Excel spreadsheet. If you had it named, that's what it's going to be looking at when it maps over the columns to the Smartsheet document. So if you can, delete any of that information and only have your column headings. So you'll see here decision number, that's going to align right here with what I'm importing. Date of entry, it's going to align right here with what I'm importing. Decision, so they all aligned. Include formulas on import, we want that to happen. I'm going to click import. It has now created a sheet for me. When I click into that, you're going to see we've got the default decision number, the date of entry, the decision here, date of decision, agreed by, action required, results and comments. Now, you could turn some of these into drop-down menus if you'd like. For example, if we only want the action required to be a yes or no option, I can right-click on this I can select Edit Column Properties, Action Required. Okay, good to go. I want it to be a drop-down though with only single select, which means you can only select one or another option. You can't select multiple. So I'm going to select single select and then name one yes, name one no, restrict to drop-down values only, click OK. And now you're going to see it's a yes or a no. So that is how we select drop-down menu. Feel free, again, to tailor the template in any way, shape, or form that makes sense to you. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about decision-making and how it impacts your projects. This should help you stay organized with understanding who is really participating and what role they're fulfilling when making the decision. And then separately, let's log it and be clear on who's doing what after the fact. I have an entirely separate video on IRAD logs or RAID logs, sometimes called different things. Check out that video if you'd like. In that video, I also provide information on how you can get a copy of the RAID log or the IRAD log that I share. So if you want a copy of that, which includes the decision-making log, feel free to reach out per the instructions. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please do. I've got some really great videos that will be coming out in the near future. As always, I appreciate you. Thanks for your time.